Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis Universitas Indonesia. Dan berikut ini adalah induksi keselamatan di kawasan FEB UI. Kawasan Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis Universitas Indonesia memiliki beberapa gedung perkuliahan dan juga gedung dekanat, di mana masing-masing gedung memiliki pintu utama, lift, tangga, dan juga pintu darurat. Diharapkan bagi siapapun di area gedung ini, harap berhati-hati saat melangkah karena berpotensi resiko lantai atau tangga licin. Gunakanlah pegangan tangga saat menaiki atau menuruni tangga. Apabila dalam keadaan darurat seperti gempa bumi, perhatikan hal-hal berikut. Usahakan agar tetap tenang dan jangan panik. Jika memungkinkan, langsung keluar gedung dan berkumpul di area lapangan atau titik berkumpul saat terjadi bencana. Jika tidak memungkinkan karena berada di lantai atas atau jauh dari pintu keluar, disarankan untuk merunduk atau berlindung di pinggir tembok, lindungi kepala dan berpegangan. Setelah goncangan reda, tetap tenang dan segera menuju titik berkumpul. Dan apabila terjadi kebakaran, jika mampu, padamkan api menggunakan apar yang telah disediakan di setiap gedung. Jika tidak mampu, berteriaklah dan nyalakan alarm. Lapor ke nomor darurat Universitas Indonesia ke nomor 787-5602. Jangan berdesakan atau berlarian. Ikuti jalur keluar sesuai tanda jalur evakuasi. Security akan menunjukkan jalur evakuasi terdekat. Pastikan tidak ada satu orang pun yang tertinggal di dalam ruangan. Untuk wanita, lepaskan sepatu dengan hak tinggi untuk memudahkan evakuasi. Dalam keadaan darurat seperti ini, gunakan tangga darurat dan tidak diperbolehkan menggunakan lift. Tetap tenang mengikuti jalur evakuasi hingga ke titik berkumpul, sampai kondisi dinyatakan aman. Demi kenyamanan dan keselamatan bersama, siapapun yang berada di kawasan Fakultas Ekonomi dan Bisnis Universitas Indonesia wajib mematuhi peraturan yang ada. Berdasarkan keputusan Rektor nomor 1805-SK-R-UI-2011 tentang kawasan tanpa rokok, seluruh warga UI dilarang merokok di dalam lingkungan kampus UI yang dapat meningkatkan risiko kebakaran. Dimohon juga untuk selalu menjaga kebersihan dengan membuang sampah di tempat yang telah disediakan.
We proudly present to you the biggest international economic seminar, competition, and model United Nations held by students in Indonesia, the 21st Economix.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 21st Economix. Good afternoon, everyone. Before we begin today's seminar, let us introduce ourselves. My name is Faisal Yusuf Baskoro, Islamic Business Student, Batch 2021.
And my name is Najla Alala, Psychology Student, Batch 2022, and we will guide you through today's seminar as your Master of Ceremony. Economix is the biggest international event in the Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas Indonesia, that is annually held by Canopy, the student body of Universitas Indonesia undergraduate economics students.
Economix regularly serves as the platform for the discussion of crucial global economic issues. The three main events of Economix are International Seminar, MUN Conference, and competition with participants from different countries all around the globe. But before we start, we would like to welcome Professor Dr. Bambang Brojonegoro, former Minister of Finance of Indonesia, also President Commissioner of Telkom Indonesia.
Dr. Wempi Saputra, Executive Director of the World Bank Group representing Southeast Asia Voting Group.
Ms. Masita Kristalin, Special Advisor to the Minister of Finance, Republic of Indonesia on macroeconomic and fiscal policy.
Ms. Issa Fitri Hafid, Director of the International Department of Bank Indonesia.
Ms. Anna Amalia, Coordinator of the Directorate for Environmental Affairs in the Ministry of National Development Planning of Republic of Indonesia, or Bappenas.
Mr. Leonard Simanjuntak, Country Director for Greenpeace Indonesia.
Ms. Uli Agustina, Director Sustainable Finance Specialist at Financial Services Authority of the Republic of Indonesia, also known as OJK.
Ms. Diah Esti Handayani, Deputy Director of the International Department of Bank Indonesia.
Dr. Gracia Paramita, Climate Specialist and Lecturer at Universitas Indonesia.
In its 21st year, Economix returns with the grand theme of
The Rise of Deglobalization, Navigating a Fractured Future. And the theme of this 21st Economix International Dialogue is
Financing the Green Transition of Developing Countries. Before we begin today's event, please abide by the following rules and information.
All participants are expected to attend the entire 21st Economix International Dialogue event until the seminar has ended.
All participants are strictly forbidden to make a hassle or make a potentially problematic situation once joined the platform.
Attendees who participate in the Q&A session by asking a question have the chance to receive a goodie bag.
The door prize winners of the AirPods, vouchers, and goodie bag had been randomly chosen from our registered participants. The lucky participants were already informed directly as they had registered through our registration desk. Now, we'll open this event by singing the national anthem of Indonesia, Indonesia Raya.
We invite all guests to rise to sing the national anthem. All guests are now permitted to sit down.
Now, let's move to the next agenda. We will hear opening remarks from important stakeholders of the 21st Economix.
First up is Mr. Unix Brian Sadikin as the Chief Executive Officer of the 21st Economix. Please welcome Mr. Unix Brian Sadikin.
Good afternoon, honorable speakers Ms. Mashita, Ms. Isafitri, Mr. Leonard Simanjuntak, Ms. Ana Amalia, Ms. Uli Agustina, Ms. Ms. Dia Esti, and also our distinguished moderator, Dr. Gracia Paramita. And good afternoon to our beloved Dean of the Faculty of Economics and Business, Mr. Teguh Dartanto. Good afternoon to fellow attendees both on-site and also on the streaming platforms. And also the last one, the best committee that I've ever been in, the 21st Economix. My name is Unix Brian, and I'm now serving as the Chief Executive Officer of the 21st Economix Global Economic Challenges. I proudly welcome you all to this international dialogue, which first and foremost, I want to appreciate everyone who made this event possible, from the distinguished speakers, from my committee, from the audiences, and everyone else who's participating and contributing to this event. It is interesting to note that this is the first year that we hold this event offline. So, and then we already have a number of 900 plus participants, both offline and offline. So please give a round of applause for everyone. Well, I'm certainly happy because there are many people who registered to the event, well, obviously. But more importantly, I'm happy because we succeeded in gathering important stakeholders to talk about a very important issue in this day and time. We see that our committee, the 21st Economix, is a medium. We strive to be a medium so that everyone else from Indonesia and to all over the world can talk about and discuss about important economic issues that affect our everyday lives. The theme for today's event, as you guys can see in the screen, is financing the green transition of developing countries. And maybe I would like to give a little bit of background about how the committee found this theme. So obviously, rest assured, you guys will get really invaluable insights from all the speakers who are here. And I assure you that outside of this auditorium, you will understand about the issues at hand. So a little bit of the backstory. The committee actually, because we're all from the economics and business department, obviously we talk about economic issues, business issues. We learn about many economic concepts and economic topics. But one thing that we wanted to find out is, we talk about green movement every day. We heard about news here and there. We have the country director for Greenpeace, who's who makes the movement in terms of green transition and green movement. But at the same time, we're also thinking and we're curious as students, how are we going to make this possible for Indonesia as one of the biggest developing country in the world? Here, arises some questions that we want to ask. Obviously, questions that we as students cannot answer yet because we're still learning. So that is why we try to find the best speakers from many sectors, from BI, from OJK, from Greenpeace, and also from Bappenas, to talk about green transition and its financing in a very holistic way. So maybe that is all that I will say for now in my speech. I will hand it over to maybe more distinguished speakers who are already here. In behalf of the committee, I wanted to say thank you for being here, and we wish you a very good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Unix, for the insightful welcoming speech.
Next up is from the Chairman of Canopy FEB UI, Mr. Winnetou Badrika Rafsya Rana Direksa. Please welcome Mr. Winnetou.
Okay, thank you, Master of Ceremonies, for the opportunities. So good afternoon, everyone, our honorable speakers, moderator, and to all our attendees. My name is Winnetou Nadireksa, and I'm speaking on behalf of Canopy FEB as the chairman, which is also a student association that also guides and supervises economics as one of our independently held events. Before we get started to our main session, I would like to express my gratitude, of course, to all of you who attended today's international dialogue titled Financing the Green Transition of Developing Countries. Special thanks and appreciation were also expressed to all of the speakers attending these events. Welcome to Economix, Professor Dr. Bambang Brojonegoro, Dr. Wempi Samputra, Mrs. Masita Kristalin, Mrs. E. Safitria Hafid, Mrs. Anna Amalia, Mr. Leonard Simanjuntak, Mrs. Uli Agustina, Mrs. Diah Esti Handayani, and lastly to our moderator, Dr. Gracia Paramita, and also Bapak Teguh. It is such an honor for us to be able to invite you all and to be able to hold economics as one of our medium to represent our concerns towards international economic and social issues as part of our Canopy FEB, which had the goals to do research and discussion about on recent social economic issues. Hopefully, today's international dialogue will be insightful to all participants, of course, and be able to give a new perspective on this theme. And I think that's all from me. Once again, thank you, and enjoy our discussion on economics, the 21st Economics International Dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winnetou, for the inspiring speech. Now we are going to hear the welcoming speech from Mr. Teguh Dartanto as the Dean of Faculty of Economics and Business Universitas Indonesia. Please welcome Mr. Teguh Dartanto.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good afternoon to everyone, especially for all distinguished speaker, moderator, and all of the participants, my beloved students. Honorable speaker and guest today, Professor Bambang Brojonegoro, my good friends, Pak Wempi Saputra. We are the same university in Japan, so we are close friend with Pak Wempi, and Dr. Masita Kristalin, special advisor for the Ministry of Finance Republic of Indonesia on macroeconomics and fiscal policy. Bu Masita is the first who initiate this event. Economics, the first CEO or first project officer at that time. So you can imagine how old we are. And thanks Bu Is Safitri Hafid, Bu Anna Amalia, Pak Leonard Simanjuta, Ibu Uli Agustina, Ibu Diah Esti Handayani, and also Dr. Gracia Paramita. On behalf of the Faculty of Economic and Business Indonesia, I would like to thank all speaker, moderator, attendees for taking your valuable time to participate in the 21st Economic International Dialogue. As the Dean of the Faculty of Economic and Business Indonesia, it is an honor for me to welcome all of you to today's seminar. The first, I would like to express my gratitude to all of the sponsor. I think this is the student that I like most, here to sponsor who have contributed this, making this event successful today. Economics at FEB is the biggest student health economics seminar, MIUN, MUN, and the competition. And this is the 21st year's present. It is not a short journey. This is very long journey, and we would like to thank Dr. Masita who initiate the first this event. Get applause to Ibu Masita. We could make event, but how to make event sustain in 2 decades is the new thing. But this economics is one of our student event, student activities that we can keep sustain years to years, and this is becoming like the big event at our faculty. This year, the 21st Economic International Dialogue carries the grand theme of the financing, the green transition of developing countries. I think this is a very important topic in current now. The issues of the sustainability, climate change, how we ensure about the energy transition, because we have to concern about our future, because our future is in our hand, especially in your hand, the young generation. We have to think about the people in the business. You have to always think about the people. Sorry, profit in the business, always profit, but no, we have to think about the people and planets. This is how this topic is very in line with also with our mission statement at our faculty, that we would like to nurture inclusive, relevant, and reputable leaders. So this is the part of the seminar. This dialogue is about the relevance, being relevant. We have to always keep in touch with the new issues, what is going on in the world, and we have to provide the solution. At least before you provide the solution, we have to aware what is going on in the society. As the student, as the future leader, you have to prepare by now. This is the climate change is not just gossip, but this is the real. So I think this is very timely issues about the financing the green transition of the developing countries. As we know that low and middle income countries are becoming emerging giants of the global demand, but their high energy consumptions threatens the world energy and climates. This is not only the developing countries, but I think we have also to protect our planet is hand in hand between the developing countries and also emerging and also as well as developed countries. But hence the clean energy technologies are crucial to achieve green sustainable growth. On the other hand, financing of the green transition is one of the challenge, with the investment in developing market falling due to the difficulties in mobilizing finance, weakens corporate balance sheet from the pandemic and the lack of the fundamental funds. Therefore, the 21st Economics event strives to stimulate an opportunity for the participants across all disciplines to communicate, to discuss, and uncover suitable solution to the current and the future global economic concern. I think this is a good idea to invite many stakeholders, not only from the government, but also from the non-profit organization or NGO or non-government organization, and from the fiscal policy, monetary policy, financial service authority, and other stakeholders to come here to discuss. I think this is the fruitful, very rare opportunity for the student to hear from very broad perspective, comprehensive perspective, how to create, how to encourage the green transition in Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope all of you can give great attention to this speaker. I'm sure that this seminar will provide the new insight to make you more knowledgeable and sensitive toward the current issues, and not only current issues, but the future issues, and also human beings problem that we face today and the future. I welcome all of you once again and hope that you have a great time. Thank you very much. Wallahu muwaffiq ila aqwamit thoriq. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Welcoming speech. Before we move on to the next agenda, we would like to thank our media partner,
Greenpeace Indonesia,
and we would also like to thank our sponsor,
Iluni FEBUI. We will now hear the opening remarks from Dr. Masita Kristalin.
Dr. Masita Kristalin is currently serving as a special advisor to the Minister of Finance Republic of Indonesia on macroeconomic and fiscal policy, where within the ministry she also is the Sherpa for the Coalition of Finance Ministers for Climate Action. Alongside of this position, she also serves as a commissioner at Indonesia Financial Group, a board member at the World Resources Institute Indonesia, a spokesperson and chairman of Office of the Board of Indonesia Investment Authority, and an expert board of APindo.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Mashita Kristalin.
Thank you, everyone. So happy, so glad to be here, Pak Teguh and all the students. Who is from UI? Who is from outside UI? Okay, in my time, it was a lot more from outside UI, and there's a university from outside of Indonesia, so you better speed up the preparation of the event. I'm only given 10 minutes. I have a lot to tell you about financing green transition, but I think we can discuss it some other time. Can I have my slide up, please? So I'd like to start the story from Indonesia being, next slide, please. I'd like to tell the story of our, can we have, okay. So we're planning to be an advanced economy by 2045, and we have a lot to catch up, including the demographic dividend. Climate development and climate risk is only a part of it. We have other objectives in the Sustainable Development Goals. We have improved into upper middle income, so we hopefully can be able to escape the middle income trap before the 2045. Before the pandemic, we have managed to be an upper middle income, but then go down again. But amidst the pandemic, in the recovery, we are going back to becoming the upper middle income. Next slide, please. So Indonesia, counter-cyclical fiscal policy, you all take macro 1 and 2, yeah? So you know that, previous slide. Maybe can I have my team to run the slide, because we have limited times and the slide needs to sync. The previous one, please. So I'll continue. This is the third slide. Indonesia counter-cyclical fiscal policy has been prudently designed and effective in reviving the economy. So we see here, or we don't see here, but you can see that the fiscal deficit before and after the pandemic is actually in Indonesia is lesser than other countries. And the increase in debt to GDP ratio is actually much more benign compared to other countries. Here you can see that Indonesia debt to GDP ratio is below Thailand, Malaysia, China, India, and other emerging market. Next slides, please. Oke. Ini kayaknya slide-nya nggak sync ke slide 4, tolong. Oke. Sebelumnya. Ya, oke. Oke. So you can see that here the global GDP growth has actually subdued. At the same time, global economy is facing a debt crisis everywhere and also inflation going up. So you know that when inflation going up, what happened to the monetary policy? We have to do contractionary monetary policy. What happened when we contract our monetary policy? Cost of financing go up because you have to increase the policy rate, right? So during the economic recovery, once you actually have to do counter-cyclical, you are hit by an inflation target that you need to do contractionary monetary policy, which is why the policy situation is really challenging. And you probably also read the papers, the geopolitics condition, commodity price boom, etc. is also complicated things. Why am I telling you, next slide please. Why am I telling you the macroeconomic behind before I'm going deeply into the climate? You can see that the Indonesia growth here is severely affected, but it's not the worst. We are coming back to the 5% GDP growth, which is our potential growth. The potential growth is actually at the same level before the pandemic and after, but if you have seen papers, those of you writing scriptsy now, you see that the average growth rate before the ASEAN financial crisis is actually much higher. So we are needing for you, once you graduate, to work really hard to increase the potential GDP of Indonesia to be above 7%, otherwise we cannot escape the middle income trap. Next slide, please. So we have post-pandemic world that provide challenges as well as opportunity, geopolitical change, climate change, supply disruption. We also, at the same time, would like to increase economic growth, productivity, social welfare, and also economic resilience. Next slide, please. That's on the macro side. Now I'm going to go deep into the climate side. So we have a scenario towards net zero. So every year, every 5 years, government are making targets for the nationally determined contribution, how much your emission supposed to go down, how much investment you need to do to be able to get that. But unfortunately, even following up with the NDC is not enough. You also have a new target called the net zero emission. It's not yet in the UNFCCC, but it's actually a more restrictive target, meaning that you need to lower emission by even more compared to the NDC target. So you see here, if we are following the net zero by 2045, 2050, and also 2060, you see the line of the decrease in the emission is more. What does it mean if you need to lower emission even more? It means you need more investment, you need more financing, and you also need to transition the economy from brown economy into green economy, okay? But changing the economy from brown to green is not like changing your clothes. You can just take it off and put a new clothes. You actually, for example, in the case of energy, you have to early decommission a certain power plant. For example, your power plant is supposed to live until 2040, and you have to cut the production now or in 5 years, meaning you have an expected revenue that you have to take the net present value into now and pay for that foregone revenue. So those are the discussion on the stranded asset. For those of you who are interested in the transition economy, these are some of the calculation that the government needs to do to carefully transition from brown to green, to carefully transition to a better net zero economy in 2060 or even earlier. Next slide, please. Climate change has become a global spotlight. You can see that according to Global Risk Report, you can see the color blue, light blue, climate action failure, extreme weather, biodiversity. A lot of these top 10 risks that people see is actually climate related. You only have several on the social cohesion, livelihood, infectious disease, death crisis, and geo-economic confrontation like war. But the rest of it is actually more than 50% is actually worried about climate change. Next slide, please. So the impact of climate change, if you see Indonesia, Indonesia is an archipelagic of 17,000 islands. So you can see the amount of climate risk that you can feel. This slide is just to show you, compared to other nations, the red nations are the one that's highly affected by the climate risk. But I'll let you to read the slide later. Next slide, please. Now we're talking about money, investment. So the investment is, you can see that, ini. Okay, stop in this slide. So you can see that emission target based on sectors, there's several big sectors, right? FOLU is the forestry sector and then energy sectors. Those two sectors, the target for the NDC or net zero is the top two, the highest. You can see that the other sectors is actually very small compared to these two sectors. But if you're looking at the cost of investment between forestry and also energy transition, the energy transition actually need much more investment than the forestry. So you can imagine if you want to solve a problem, you have two routes, right? And every route have a different cost and pricing. What does it mean? It means you need to try to make it cheaper, do economies of scale, do blended financing in order to be able to achieve the target. I'll probably go directly, because I only have 1 minute left, I'll go directly to slide 23. Slide 23. The title is Challenge in Energy Transition. So how to avoid greenwashing? You could probably disrupt the reputation of the economy by changing from brown to green not in a correct manner. So you have to make sure that the actual emission is actually go down. 2 slides before this, please. Okay. So the transition financing framework has actually not been included in the global taxonomy. You've heard about green transition and green financing. Have you heard about transition finance? Not many people have heard. Ibu Iis here from BI is working hard last year on the G20 presidency to create this word transition finance. If you are about to close a certain power plant, you need investment for the foregone expected revenue that I told you about, right? Is that investment categorized as green? Not in the current taxonomy. It means if a certain economy would like to transition from brown to green, they need investment, and that investment is not categorized as green investment, which is why we are working hard. Next slide, please. We are working hard to change the institution on the global and the domestic regulation. We're preparing carbon market regulation, transition finance regulation. In OJK and Ministry of Finance, we're working to change the ASEAN taxonomy version 2 to include transition finance and transition economy. And also we are nudging the world to change the policy. So once you graduate and be able to work in different institutions, you will find that sometimes you need to push the frontier, talk to the global people, and say the current system is not ready to cater to the current problem. So this is what the Ministry of Finance with our Minister, Ibu Sri Mulyani, is currently working on the global front from transition economy. Next slide, please. This is what we have done. So you see a problem, you need financing, you need more of financing, but you also need a certain category of financing, which is transition finance, right? On the transition finance, you need new regulation, you need new institution, and you need a new global play. So we're working on the ASEAN taxonomy and also creating the institution. But I would like to, I don't want to talk more about the ASEAN and the G20 presidency in this speech, but I would like to nudge you as students that when you are out there in the world solving problems, try to look at the problem in a neutral tone. Put your blank paper without value and then see what's actually the possible result or possible solution for your problem. And then you start to put your value, right? You remember that Pareto optimum movement is not always the one that has the highest equality value. So then you start to put your value. Is it equal? Is it affordable? Is it just? And then you create a certain policy design that cater towards that questions that you ask in the blank paper, but also you add your value. You want to be an advanced economy. You want poverty to go down. You want unemployment to go down, etc. So I'll stop here. So happy to be here. And thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Masita, for really easing us into the topic today via your amazing opening remarks. Next, we will listen to the opening remarks from Dr. Wempi Saputra.
Dr. Wempi Saputra has been serving as the Executive Director for the World Bank since November 2022, representing 11 countries under Southeast Asia Voting Group. Prior to this assignment, he was the Assistant Minister of Macroeconomy and International Finance of the Government of Indonesia from October 2021 until October 2022.
Without further ado, please welcome Dr. Wempi Saputra.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, greetings from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much for having me, inviting me to this very prestigious event, the 21st Economix International Dialogue, which theme financing the green transition of developing countries. The issue of green transitions, which is focused a shift towards economically sustainable growth and an economy that is not based on fossil fuels and overconsumption of natural resources are very relevant today. A sustainable economy relies on low carbon solutions that promote the circular economy and biodiversity. For companies, the manufacturing industry and municipalities, the green transitions can mean investment in clean energy productions, circular economy solutions and hydrogen technology, and the introduction of different kinds of new services and operating models. Low carbon roadmaps and sustainability strategies drawn up by different sectors are an important part of this package. There is a question why the green transitions means importance in our daily lives, which very much includes, for example, how to phasing out the fossil fuels heating and shifting to electric cars. We are investing for our future. For the society as a whole, it can mean different kinds of incentives and subsidies for this and legislation that support the green transition. The green transition also means that we must question our individual consumer habits and ways of thinking. Could we, for example, use machines and appliances that consumes less electricity? Would we be prepared to pay more for products manufactured near us that cause less emissions? The green transition is necessary because at this moment we are over-consuming the natural resources, both fossil fuels and renewable ones. This overconsumption has further aggravated the climate and ecological crisis. For this reason, a comprehensive change is needed in the way we use our natural resources. The key challenge is to limit consumption within the carrying capacity of our planet, while at the same time keeping the wheels of the economy turning. Broadly speaking, phasing out fossil fuels will turn the climate and environmental challenge into an opportunity. The green transition becomes a driver of new growth and lays the foundation for business and sustainable economy. By offering a more comprehensive range of products and services, we will also provide better opportunities for the end users to reduce their own burden of emissions. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to bring your attention to more broader context of the climate change and climate resilience transition. In the current context of overlapping crises, climate action remains critical. Man-made greenhouse gas emissions are causing climate change, which in turn is having tragic impacts on people and development in multiple ways. Achieving true momentum to address the climate emergency with disproportionate impact on the poor and vulnerable households in developing countries especially will require the identification of impactful programs and projects, adequate public policies, and significantly increased funding from multiple sources. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a significant gap in funding for climate actions in developing countries, which is also in turn how to finance the green transition in developing countries. The annual flow of climate finance to developing countries is less than $425 billion for low-income countries and middle-income countries. These flows should at least quadruple by 2030. Key obstacles in generating funding from the private sector include aligning incentives for global public goods action, project identification and pipeline challenges, business environment weaknesses, high-risk perceptions, and regulatory constraints. The current environment of multiple shocks, elevated risk, and budgetary constraints compounds the challenges for the public sector. In this sense, adequate policies and capable institutions that are aligned with long-term climate and development objectives are key to accelerating climate actions and maximizing the impact of limited resources. Ladies and gentlemen, despite its long-term benefits, the green transition or in more broader context, the climate transition would require trillions in incremental investment costs in low-income countries and middle-income countries. Low-income countries and middle-income countries are estimated to need between 1.7 trillion until 3.4 trillion US dollars in climate finance per year by 2030 to support their climate actions. Current climate finance delivery is uneven and pales in comparison to investment needs. Annual average climate finance in low-income countries and middle-income countries is very less than what we need for the transition. In this issue, we also have to think about how to balance between the climate mitigation and the climate adaptations. For this reason, I would like to say at these opening remarks that this event is very timely and relevant to discuss more thorough about not only the policies of the green transition, but also to touch upon very focused and very detailed discussion about the accessibility and affordability of the transition. We would like to foster, we would like to promote a just and transition, especially for developing countries, and at the same time, this transition become an ownership, not only for the government, but also all key stakeholders and shareholders, so that this transition could be conducted proportionately and could benefit optimally for the whole people. Thank you again. I wish you very productive and fruitful discussion, and greeting from Washington DC. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Wempi, for the informative opening remarks.
And now we will listen to the keynote speech from Ms. Is Safitri Hafid.
Ms. Is Safitri Hafid has been the director of the International Department of Bank Indonesia since 2021. Prior to this assignment, she was the director of the Central Java Regional Office of Bank Indonesia during 2019 until 2021, as well as an advisor of the Southeast Asia Voting Group of IMF.
Please welcome Ms. Is Safitri.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Greetings to, I would like to give a special remark first, a greeting to our committee and also the host, Professor Datato, who just left the room, and then also Pak Wempi, Executive Director of the World Bank Group, representing Southeast Asia Voting Group, Ibu Maisita, who were here with us, Special Advisor to Minister of Finance on Macroeconomic Policy, Pak Bambang Brojo, President Commissioner of Telkom Indonesia, and also our distinguished speakers, Ibu Ana Amelia, Bapak Leonard Simanjuntak, Ibu Uli Agustina, and Ibu Diah Esti Hadayani. Also moderator, Ibu Gracia Paramita, and all participants in today's very prestigious event. So it is an honor for me to be here to speak in this very special event. Always happy to be able to engage with student activities, because I was also one of you who were running event, trying to get support from professional and also business world to have a hands-on experience while you are still students. So again, I'm very happy to be here, and also very happy to speak on financing the green transition in developing countries. I believe it is our responsibility to address the pressing issue of climate change and its impact to our economies. So, ladies and gentlemen, participants, can you get to my slide? Yeah, okay, stay on the first slide because I don't have that much slide. Okay, you will just stay here first. Okay, so we had often pursue economic growth without paying sufficient attention to the damage resulting to environment. And those who are vulnerable to this impact due to costly adaptation and mitigation effort are mainly the lower social group or lower income countries. And this group are prone to environmental degradation, such as air pollution, flood, drought, and lost access to production resources. But actually, if we see a presentation earlier from Ibu Maisita and also from Pak Wempi, indeed climate change presents a major threat to long-term growth and prosperity, and it has a direct impact to the economic well-being in all countries. The economic losses from the climate change are expected to be much higher, even compared to the losses from the global financial crisis of 2008. You probably already learned on that episode of our history, and also compared to COVID-19 pandemic. According to the latest estimate, climate economic loss is projected to reach 18% of global GDP by 2050. And this is a staggering figure, and it is clear that urgent action are needed to mitigate this risk. And Indonesia is among the countries that have significant challenges to climate change. The losses due to climate risk are predicted to reach about 40% of Indonesia's GDP by 2050. And for other ASEAN countries, they will also suffer similar impact, either directly or indirectly. Take an example of higher sea level. It will not only affect one or two countries, but all regions. Accordingly, it is clear that we must act swiftly to address this issue. Students and also participants, let me underscore the climate risk and the urgency of coordination. Climate-related issue is two sides of coin. Apart from the risk that we have heard all from the previous speaker and also from my earlier part of address, we can also see the benefit from the climate-related issue. The significant opportunities can be found in the transition to a low-carbon economy. That is by investing in renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, and also green infrastructure. This will create new jobs and promote economic growth while at the same time reduce our carbon emission. The key here is how to get there. How to get there in a just, orderly, and affordable manner. And this is where coordination comes to kick in. As we believe, the whole is greater than the sum of parts. Each country perhaps already has its own plan to achieve net zero. However, to achieve optimal result, we must align our economy and financial system with transitioning to a lower carbon economy. This means incorporating climate risks and opportunities into our financial decision making and promoting investment that supports sustainable finance. That's fine. History taught us that financial sector could lead transformation. A very good example is the Industrial Revolution. You remember this history part in which banks endorsed the rise of or the use of machinery to produce goods and services. And in this spirit, central bank and fiscal agency have an important role in redoing the transition. So redoing in the other way around. And that is by encouraging and facilitating investment to a low carbon economy. By designing incentive and disincentive policies, financial regulator can shift economic agents' preference to sustainable investment. Those require innovative financial instruments can channel their capital toward sustainable investment. At the same time, fiscal agencies could also impose both pricing and non-pricing policies to encourage private sector to do sustainable investment. And as the guardian of financial stability, central banks have responsibility to ensure financial systems are doing climate transition in orderly, just, and affordable manner. This is legacy of Indonesia's G20 presidency that require financial system to maintain transition while keeping the climate risk well managed. So this is the one that Ibu Maisita was mentioning. And for Bank Indonesia, we are actively involved, among others, in the G20 working group, where we work together to achieve a sustainable roadmap. And in ASEAN, to name a few of the initiatives we do in ASEAN, we are working in the ASEAN Senior Level Committee Financial Integration to prepare the ASEAN Taxonomy, as also Ibu Maisit already mentioned, through ASEAN Taxonomy Board and ASEAN Green Map. And also in Financial Stability Board, we are working, engaging with other members to find ways to continuously enhance how to green the financial sector to support orderly transition. Okay, can move to the next slide. So, fellow participant, to do an orderly transition, infrastructure is one of the backbone, particularly for Southeast Asia's economy, that could improve. ASEAN countries recognize that to achieve their sustainable development and climate change goal, infrastructure must be designed, built, and operated based on sustainability principle and inclusive green growth. In other words, countries must invest in green infrastructure that is environmentally sustainable, low carbon, climate resilient, and meets the need of local community. Unfortunately, the region faces huge investment shortfall of more than 100 billion a year. Public financing is inadequate to meet this huge need, and to plug this gap, private capital must play a larger role in financing infrastructure projects. And at the same time, investment focus must change as well. Hence, to support that, investment constraint in transforming green infrastructure should be addressed. The commercially attractive project should be promoted with adequate information for private sector and private sector financier, and to calculate the cost and benefit from the project. And now, coming from the central bank, I would like to focus the rest of my address on the central bank perspective, adding to what that has been conveyed by Ibu Maisita and Pak Wempi. We view that central bank have a range of policy to promote the alignment of finance with goal of Paris Agreement. I summarize the policy tool into three constructs. We can move to the next slide. Firstly, central bank can deploy incentive and disincentive macroprudential policies to accelerate financial system transition towards sustainable financing. This could be done by integrating sustainable consideration into existing policy mix and innovating a new policy toolkit to curb the challenges and promote scaling up of sustainable finance. Prudential regulation can further encourage a financial institution to take climate-related risks and opportunities into account in their decision-making process. This could involve requiring banks to describe their exposure to climate risks or imposing higher capital requirement on assets that are particularly vulnerable to these risks. As an example of it, we at Bank Indonesia, we have applied incentive for banks to increase their lending into green sector. We have also applied a more favorable loan to value ratio for lending to buy greenhouse, electric vehicles, something you can also take advantage of. Bank Indonesia will continue its commitment to achieve our National Determined Commitment or NDC pledge to reduce greenhouse gas emission by 26% with our own effort, or by 41% with international assistance by 2030. And second, another area of policy is to promote the affordability and accessibility of sustainable finance instrument. In this area, central bank can support the liquidity of sustainable bond or sukuk by incorporating it in monetary operation, making the bond more attractive to investor. Central bank can also develop green money market instrument and leverage on monetary tool to incentivize and promote more market participants. And then last but not least, financing climate-related investment requires strong collaboration and partnership across multiple stakeholders. This could include developing policy framework that incentivize green projects, or working with private sector to develop new financial products that support transition. Bank Indonesia, alongside with Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Environment and Forestry, as well as coordinating Ministry of Maritime and Investment, we have started to explore establishing carbon emission measurement tools, or we also call it calculator carbon. And this tool is meant to help industries, especially financial sector, to align their business model with climate transition. Collaboration with multinational organizations is also indispensable, such as developing blended finance and de-risking facilities with multinational development bank, and also social related finances. This synergy, coupled with policy commitment, could optimize to provide clear signal and support smooth adjustment of climate transition finance. So, in conclusion, climate change is a pressing issue. While it seems that this is meant to tackle a longer-term issue, it is indeed as urgent as the current economy problem on how to promote economic growth. And transition finance is a critical aspect to address this issue. I believe that central bank, together with greater stakeholders, have crucial role in aligning transition finance. All stakeholders need to continue to work together to address the challenges and promote alignment of finance with the goal of the Paris Agreement. We need to ensure that our financial systems are resilient to climate risk and support the transition to low carbon. And I believe that college students like you can also contribute to this issue, sharing your fair share on this matter. And by working together, we can create a more sustainable future for ourselves and for the next generation. And finally, I would close my address by giving you motivation because we are here at a economics student. If you don't believe that climate change is a pressing issue, try this. And I will stop here. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Ms. Is, for the insightful keynote speech.
Before we continue to the main session, we would like to give a token of appreciation to our opening speakers.
Therefore, we kindly invite Mr. Yunix Brian Sadikin as the Chief Executive Officer of the 21st Economix to give the placards. For our first speaker, Ms. Is Safitri Hafid, we invite you to the stage.
Once again, we would like to say thank you to Ms. Is Safitri Hafid. We would also like to express our gratitude to Dr. Masita Kristalin, who has unfortunately left the venue. We would also like to thank our media partner
Greenpeace Indonesia,
and our sponsor,
Iluni FEBUI. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now enter the main session of the seminar titled Financing the Green Transition of Developing Countries. This session will be moderated by Dr. Gracia Paramita.
Dr. Gracia Paramita is an academic with expertise in international relations studies and climate change politics. She is currently a lecturer at the Department of International Relations, Universitas Indonesia. She was appointed by the government of Indonesia as the co-chair of Youth 20 in 2022, as well as Global Youth Advisor to the United Nations Environmental Program, or UNEP's, Tunza program in 2011 to 2013. Everyone, please welcome Dr. Gracia.
Thank you so much for the MC. Hello, good afternoon. This is the right time that we were going to the main session. I'm Gracia Paramita, but you can call me Miss Grace or Grace. Before I call all the remarkable speakers today, we've got 4 varieties of backgrounds for our speakers. I'm just wondering, and I want you to raise your hands. What would you think when we talk about climate change and environmental crisis? If I say the word energy crisis, which number would be the most risk in this world? So if you agree that energy crisis number 1, raise your hands. Number 1 crisis in the world. Nobody believes that energy crisis is becoming number 1? Raise hands. Okay, what about, well, I thought you already paid attention to Dr. Masita and also Ibu Is presentations. I think there's, some clue in that presentation. What about food crisis? Do you believe that food crisis becoming number 1? Raise hands. Food crisis, it means that there will be no adequate food for us as a basic need. Okay, I'm a little bit surprised then what you believe for the crisis, this world. I think we are blessed that we can witness various, I would say, disasters, crises, but at the same time also very important historical moments. We've got G20 presidency last year. We've got ASEAN's chairmanship this year, but also in the past we just faced the a lot of pandemic and also the economic inflations and others. So those will be surround into our topics today. And now let me welcome all the speakers by calling one by one. The first speaker, Mr. Leonard Simanjuntak, the country director of Greenpeace Indonesia. He has been the country director of Greenpeace since July 2016, and he was one of the founding members of Greenpeace, and now also serves as the chairman for the supervisory board of Transparency International Indonesia. Mr. Leonard, please come to the stage. Moving on to our second speaker, Ms. Ana Amalia, planner of the Directorate for Environmental Affairs from the Ministry of National Development Bappenas. Ms. Ana has been serving as the planner of the Directorate for Environmental Affairs in Bappenas since 2008. Prior to this assignment, she was the supervisor of health, safety, environment at PT Prima Indreksa Industries from June 2005 until November 2007. Please, Ms. Ana, come join us on the stage. Yeah. Thank you. Now, to our third speaker, Ms. Uli Agustina, the Director of Sustainable Finance Specialist from Financial Services Authority, or OJK, from Republic of Indonesia. Ms. Uli has been the OJK's Director and Sustainable Finance Specialist since March 2023. She's also the lead coordinator of the Task Force of Climate Financial Related Risks and Sustainable Finance Internal Banking Supervision. She represents OJK in central banks and supervisors network, focusing on greening the financial system work stream, transition planning, blended finance, and litigation. Ms. Uli, please come with us on the stage. And now to our last speaker, Ms. Dia Esti Handayani, Deputy Director of the International Department of Bank Indonesia. Ms. Esti currently serves as the Deputy Director of International Department from Bank Indonesia. She was the head of substance team in charge of the Indonesian ASEAN and ASEAN Plus 3 chairmanship in 2023. She previously served as the advisor to the executive director in the Southeast Asia Voting Group of the IMF. Ms. Esti, please come with us with our remarkable speakers here. Thank you. All right, before I start, for sure we will have 4 trigger questions. That means everyone or every speaker has a fair opening answers for each trigger questions. But before that, let me tell the audience here and also to online that we have the QR link or like a barcode for giving a questions or asking. And during question and answer sessions, there will be some random choosing, so that will be like a fair manner. 2 questions first from the audience here offline, and also 2 questions from online. But of course, this session, the Q&A, will be conducted after the talk show or after my conversation with all the speakers. We have opened the link. I think you can see this on the screen for the Q&A link, so you can submit your questions right now as early as possible so that we can randomly pick up or choose the questions, and you can also type to whom you will ask that questions. All right, let me have a seat. So, let me share the current report from World Economic Forum. That's why I asked the questions to the audience. In 2023, World Economic Forum, basically they annually release the report, but the latest one has put energy crisis as number 1, the most risk or the most crucial risk in this world. In following with the high cost or high living costs. So that reflects how economic transition, which Dr. Masita already explained, is very important to be aligned with this green transition. And I think I will start from that statement or that background. And we also, have been aware there has been so many tremendous initiatives that Indonesia has done. Starting from G20 presidency, there has been, like, for example, G20 Bali Energy Transition Roadmap, followed by the JETP, Just Energy Transition Partnership, with 20 billion US dollars investment from different resources. And now ASEAN also has a strong message to, increase or even accelerate the energy investment or other green transitions in different sectors. So my first question about what's the urgency or how urgent Indonesia and other developing countries to do this green transition, I will ask this to Ms. Anna from Bappenas, and maybe you can also briefly tell us about the current progress of RPJMN perhaps, and how it relates to this urgency of the green transition.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Grace. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, all maybe colleagues here. I hope you will still bear with us, because I know this is very, very hard time. But then, I think my part here is quite easy, because Dr. Masita and Ibu is already setting very well context regarding how urgent we need to go to the green transition. Maybe I need to sum up with two understanding. The first one, Indonesia need to develop and also need to become a higher countries, because we are, of course, we are big countries here. Our economic need to grow as far and as fast as it can, but then we still hampered with a lot of problems, multi-dimensional problem. Dr. Masita already mentioned about the economic perspective, but in our economic perspective, of course, this is not only an environmental issue, this is a very development issue. We are now facing, and also will also goes with that. We know about the triple planetary crisis that are climate change, pollution, and also biodiversity loss. Why I mention about this? Because this multidimensional crisis will hamper our economy. Our analysis in Bappenas already revealed that our economic in our next 20 years, we want to grow until 7%. We will not achieve that. That's the first one. If we don't do anything with a very transformative progress. That is why we need to go with a green transition, because our economic will not grow if our environment continues to deplete, continue to decrease. Our analysis state that we only can growth only 3 or 4%, of course. This is not good, because we are a very big country with very big population here. We want to nurture our people here and so on. That is why in Bappenas we pave this green transition start from now. We already make our 5 years plan from 2020 and until 2024. This year we still do that medium term. We put a very specific target. We want to reduce the greenhouse gas emission reduction, as well as we want to continue our economic. We call it the reduction of the intensity of greenhouse gas. This is not only we reduce the emission, but also we need to sustain our economic in our long run. That is why we need to make it balanced. We cannot do in a decoupling way. We need to go in a very simultaneous way and in balance. And the next one is because we know the green economic is very good and very have a lot of benefits, not only for the economic and also for the green the emissions, but also we can set up for the advantage for the green job and so on. And but bear in mind that the climate change is not only the environmental issue, but it's all very broad issues that will hamper all of the lives here. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe let's move to Ibu Esti or Miss Esti. Maybe you can also share your thoughts. How urgent the central bank, and even not just Indonesia, other central banks around the world, prioritizing this issue, the green and climate change, as their urgent plan?
Thank you, Ms. Grace. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm from the central bank. So in the central bank's main business is actually stability, right? But to have stability is it's a necessary condition for growth. Now, to have that stability, we also need to look at the challenges that we have today. There are a lot of type of challenges: food sufficiency in the world, and also climate change. So, as have been elaborated by Ms. Mashita, Ms. Is today, they have also highlighted that climate is going to be a big issue for Indonesia. Why? As you can see, they elaborated that in 2050, the loss from inaction in climate is around 18%. That's the average for the world. But for Indonesia, it's 40%, because we are very vulnerable in terms of climate. Why? As you can see, this rising sea level, that's a very simple thing that could drown Java, and we have to move somewhere, all of us, right? So those are the kind of things that, as a central bank, even though it seems a bit far-fetched, but we have to be also concerned with climate, because in the end, it can affect stability. That's the first thing. The potential losses from climate. And from my notes, I'd say that we don't want to be left behind, because if we don't deal with the climate challenges right now, then we're going to be left behind. What do I mean by this? Europe is moving very progressively, and they're trying to put taxes on things that they don't see as green. So if you see the industry in that country is as brown or black, and then they're going to put levy taxes, and that will make our products uncompetitive, right? And so that will, in cumulative, that will affect our competitiveness, and it will affect capital flows, and that is the business of central bank. We want stability, we want capital flows to be sustainable, so that there is exchange rate pressure to our economy is, manageable, so that we can trade, and that's where we come in. So why is it important? Because we don't want to be left behind. We want Indonesia to be competitive, to grow into an advanced economy, and to do that, we must also manage the challenges from climate. Maybe this for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Esti. And still relates to the carbon tax you mentioned. Now I'm moving on to Bu Uli. Maybe you can also share the further progress that OJK already respond in relations to the carbon tax, and how urgent that carbon tax or even green taxonomy that OJK already initiated as we are making this green transition.
Let me ask them to show the slide. The committee, would you like to show the slide number 9 first? Number 9, please. Okay, next. Okay. I would like to underline OJK roles. I believe the student is here, learning macro and economy, it means also learning about the role of OJK. OJK have three big roles. First, the supervision of all financial institutions. And under the new law, that not only banking sectors, we also will oversee all the other non-bank financial institutions, including multi-finance, insurance, and also the new fintech, financial technology, and others. The second role is it's related to the prudential and risk regulatory and supervisions. And the second one, we also doing the market conduct. In here, the role of the carbon exchange, the carbon trading. And then the third one is also, we will also oversee the customer protections. Within these three roles, OJK is already maintained our commitment supporting for the Paris Agreement since we have the POJK number 51 in 2017. So under POJK 51 in 2017 is becoming the ground rules for all the financial institutions, including the public entities who issue their bonds in the capital market. They need to report to OJK. First, maintaining their sustainable practices. The second one, they have to report to us their sustainable report and their action plan toward the sustainable economy or sustainable finance. In here, especially in banking itself, since 2019, within our roadmap, phase 1, 2017 to 2019, and then we have the second phase that established in 2019 until now. The second phase in here is also maintaining all the things. In the first roadmap, we maintain only about increasing the awareness with that POJK. And the second roadmap, we are more to be the implementations. Within the implementations, there are a lot of things. The policy, not only the awareness, we have to provide the product. As mentioned also from Ibu Masita and also from the central bank, the instrument needed to finance for the transition finance is also a must. And then we also need to have the market infrastructures. Within this, the carbon exchange, the carbon trading was going to already develop and going to be implemented as soon the Q4 of 2023. Hopefully we already have our own carbon trading. And this is also one of the latest advancement in the region because not many other countries already have their own carbon trading. The next one, we also build with the collaborations for the capacity building, especially if we want to establish the exact roadmap, we have to have a certain people, expert within, not only within the products itself, the supply chain, but also the supervisors to really understand, to really know and then guide all the financial institutions to have the prudent activities toward the sustainable practices. I think that's all for a bit of introductions of us. And going to the carbon tax, I just want to highlight some things. Can you go to the slide? Sorry. I believe I have the slide for the carbon trading. I think it's with the JETP one. The left side before the end of slide. Maybe slide 10? Okay. In here, this also a bit what we call it introductions to carbon exchange. Just recently, we have the OJK regulation number 14, 2023 regarding the carbon exchange. Within this regulation, OJK already regulates and then develops the carbon trading itself with the coordinations that the IDX will done the carbon exchange, and we have the clearing and custody and the supervision under OJK. And actually for the carbon exchange itself, we are quite confident that the first carbon credit will come from our PLN, from the energy sectors, which is also in line with the green taxonomy, because as mentioned earlier, we talk a lot about the green taxonomy, and I would like also to underline that green taxonomy is also one of OJK role just last year, we have the first version of the green taxonomy, which was launched during our annual meeting with President Jokowi. This one is one also becoming the what we call it prior to compared to other countries. Within this green taxonomy, we work hand in hand with the related ministry to provide with approach, a traffic light approach within which of the financings within that category in many sectors. We have around 2,700 sectors divided using the business classification 2017 under Bappenas. And then we also believe that this is a living document by the recent ASEAN Taxonomy Board issuance. And we would like to mention also OJK is the principal contributors for that ASEAN Taxonomy Board along with the Ministry of Finance. And within that, we are gladly to inform you that we can enforce the coal passing out, the transition energy within the ASEAN Taxonomy Board. This is very good, what we call it, a standpoint for us to show that we are really support to the transition energy and not only undermining, because we still need the, what we call it, the economy coming from the coal to support our growth in GDP, for example. And I believe that by this year, we also will launch our revised green taxonomy. Of course, this will be also coordinated with the Ministry of Finance and Bank Indonesia. Hopefully, the energy sectors will also operate the interoperability of the ASEAN taxonomy within the regions. I think that's all. Thank you.
Wow, that's very interesting. Given the fact from Bappenas stating about the 3 planetary crises, biodiversity loss, a lot of economic damage as well, and regarding the development itself, and then we also heard from Ibu Esti when we talk about the central bank, there is a need of stability. So speaking of climate crisis, it's not about how to recover the climate change or the impacts afterwards, but also how to stabilize, how to settle up the economic itself, as well as the following statement from Ibu Uli. There are so many initiatives like you have seen about the carbon exchange, and then we also have JETP, Just Energy Transition Partnership. OJK also just recently released the new regulation about the carbon exchange under number 14, 2023, and also the revision of the green taxonomy, and that's like maybe the real concrete policy-based action that the Indonesian government already did regarding the green transition. And now I'm moving to Mr. Leo or Pa Leo. You can also start from some statements about the urgency of green transition, but I also want you to drag deeper how we can combine, or how do you think about the need of corporate sectors to join this green transition, or do you think this should be all totally to the government's responsibility by giving incentives or the regulations or other policies, or maybe you have any other thoughts, please?
Thank you, Dr. Grace. Good afternoon, everyone. Very pleased to be here, my second time in this Economix. I think a few years ago, still in pandemic time, but it was online. So I'm very pleased and honored here in this respected School of Economics. I guess you invited Greenpeace to speak boldly, right? So I will speak bold, and I will speak direct. So yes, it is very urgent. And we have, as a global society, a common responsibility now, common and differentiated responsibilities. Even in climate geopolitical landscape, now it's very different. Today is very different when compared like to when we agreed as global society, as parties to the Kyoto Protocol. I went to Kyoto, 97, and at that time still there is the so-called Annex 1 countries, the ones the only ones responsible to basically to reduce the carbon emissions. Now every country should have a contribution, the NDCs, and everyone should be involved. I would revert to the latest, very, of course, thought-provoking. I think he's already very frustrated. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres already says that this is not global warming anymore, this is global boiling already. And of course, we in Greenpeace, not anymore calling it climate change, we call it climate crisis. So if the committee can display my first few slides, basically that will tell the urgency. So if you can go to the first slide, I'll be very brief. So if the aggregate NDCs of all countries will bring us to 2.8 degrees. Not 1.5, 2.8 degrees. Almost double the safety threshold, and almost certain, actually, permanent climate disasters. So it's going to be catastrophic. So we need to be sprinting, but we are still walking. So next. And why we have to talk about Indonesia's contribution? Because we, very clearly, part of the top 10 global emitters. I mean, no one can deny it anymore. We are there. So we have the responsibilities to the world. Next. So the global aggregate will bring us to 2.8. Indonesia's NDCs, enhanced NDCs, if it's extrapolated globally, will bring us to 4 degrees. So we are actually categorized highly insufficient by credible climate action trackers. So it's our NDCs are still I would say half-hearted. And there is so much, and I will probably talk a bit later on that, there's so much gaps, there's inconsistencies, policy inconsistencies in our climate-related policies. Next. So, and this is one of the, of course, the inconsistencies. We are, while of course, the climate science say that we actually should stop constructing coal power plants, we are actually number one in with the highest percentage of increase of coal power plants. So that's our problem. So urgency, yes. The other side of climate talk, normally that's the problem, right? Now a bit about the impacts. 95% of our disasters are hydrometeorological. Climate science already says, it's consensus already, that it's manifested basically from the climate crisis. I think I already repeatedly talk about climate science, mentioned climate science. The thing is, I think our policies, our approach to this problem has been, I wouldn't say business as usual, but see this more as business and economic opportunities. I mean, the green transition, the the EVs, the batteries, the campaign on nickel smelters and all that, which has already started to create some environmental problems in Sulawesi, in Morowali, in Konawe, in North Halmahera. I think we should position the climate crisis, and we should adhere to the climate science as the basis of our policy making. And I think that should be the start. And that should be the start in terms like in producing the rather problematic bill on new and renewable energy, because there's so many false solutions, coal-based solutions there. That's the climate crisis and climate science should also be the main basis of the green track taxonomy, which has been mentioned, of JETP, and many other policies that we are talking now, because it's actually very real, the climate related disasters and climate crisis. We're entering El Nino again now, probably similarly bad with 2019, and we're probably going to be expecting large-scale forest fires this year and next year. But there are opportunities but that needs fundamental and bold policies based on climate science. Thank you.
Going to the second question, Pak Leo, still from your side. So, do you agree that the financing green transition should be both integration between corporates and government subsidies, or there should be other sources of funding?
Corporation, particularly large-scale corporations, have to be involved. We have been campaigning on this, through the conversation and finally in Sharm el Sheikh, COP27 last year, loss and damage agreed after years of campaigning. The climate summit finally adopted or agreed that we should take action on loss and damages, and lots of loss and damages. I think I need to make it very clear here, actually caused by large-scale fossil fuel industries that have been exploiting this earth for decades. And actually, last year, corporation like Shell doubled their profits. Because of the crisis, the energy crisis. Number one in Davos risk rating. And they need to pay. They need to pay. A lot other corporations need to pay because they have been profiting extensively for decades for this. So states, yes, Northern Hemisphere states, of course, have to take lots of responsibility. The 100 billion per year funds agreed in Copenhagen, COP 2008, never achieved. And also now the corporation, large-scale corporation, need to pay their share in paying for mitigation, for adaptation, for loss and damages. Thank you, Dr. Grace.
Thank you, Bapak Leo. Now, maybe we move to OJK again, because this is talking about responsibility. As we heard from Pak Leo regarding the big responsibility from large-scale private sectors, corporates, what is the statement from OJK, or what do you think about Financial Services Authority is seeing this, which one should be prioritized, or should both government and private sectors integrate it fairly enough?
Okay. Can we go to slide 5? Within this slide, it will show, this one is also to underline the same statement from Ibu Masita, that it's required for the government to do the mitigate climate change. We need around US dollar to 150 billion. It's quite, I don't know, it's compared to our GDP, it's impossible to happen unless the collaboration and synergy on also the role of the private sectors. In here, OJK, as the regulators for the financial institutions, really have the urgency to provide with the confidence. But again, as I mentioned also, can you go back to the slide number 9? There are a lot of challenges actually to make the green transition financing happen. In demand side, we have huge investment and operational costs needed for the green projects compared to conventional one, not to mention for the exploratory. The example is the geothermal. It takes 10 to 20 years for the maturity of the exploration itself to come into the project and be success. And also that the green project seems quite risky and nobody able, in here the expertise still very limited. In the supply side, especially also, we are also inviting, Bank Indonesia mentioned, they will provide a lot of instruments for the having longer durations with specific schemes that will support the transition. This is quietly, we gladly embrace that. And then also regarding in the investment also to provide the investment, especially the potential investor from foreigners or abroad, we need also what we call it, have the expertise to be able to provide with the disclosure and government's impact report. I believe this is also a big question mark and a big challenges also for the project in Indonesia. But again, thumbs up for the Ministry of Finance. They already have the SDG Indonesia platform, which is empowered PTSMI to have the blended finance transition finance mechanism. This is really grateful, and PTSMI is also under OJK supervisions. So we work closely with PTSMI to provide with recommendations and what we call it discussion on how to manage that. And then, as I mentioned to you, that OJK also as part of network greening for financial sectors, we already, and upcoming by the end of this year, there will be a handbook of blended finance issuance alongside with the one that transition planning is already, where within that handbook, OJK also becoming part of the contributor and also PTSMI as to showcase what project to be able to have a success blended finance schemes that can be becoming also the role model for other countries to develop the same project. This is something that we are optimistic that what Indonesia did with the strong support for the government in the scheme of the insurance and the confidence for the investor. But again, private sectors have to jump and be part of the actions. Thank you.
Thank you. We have some different perspectives, which is interesting. So Pak Leo already explained how the fossil fuel-based large-scale corporates pay big responsibility to the green transition, but at the same time, from Ibu Uli already mentioned how OJK, along with the PTSMI and probably, hopefully in the future, there will be other partners coming up and joining to this sustainability report, the governance performance report, and how that it takes time, it takes 20 years to, make money to up to 20 billions or more than billion US dollars to make sure that this green transition happen. Maybe the last few from Bappenas, Ms. Anna, you can also share some best practices perhaps from SDGs or other relevant Bappenas doing how the incentives or subsidies of government can hand in hand, or maybe there is another thought to do this responsibility on the financing green transition?
Yeah, I think regarding the, we will talk about the finance. I think it should be both sides from the private sector and also government have their responsibilities. In my perspective, government is, of course, they have a very important roles here to set up the policies, regulations, and also give the incentive and also funding scheme that is can increase the eagerness of the private sector to do to move their business to in a greener way. And also kind of the one thing that I want to highlight also, government right now is still encouraging about the de-risking and guarantee instrument, because we believe that funding sources for climate change, considering this issue is very sexy right now. A lot of institutions, a lot of sources willing to give their fund, but sometimes it's not easy to get that fund because it's not what we call it. It's not matching about the how can we tap that fund and their requirement from the investor to the business. So that's why government need to be able to stand here there. So, and the other side, from the private sectors, of course, because they are the actors of the business, they need to move to the greener way to get their profit. That is why it's like a circular economy. We are now working in how we can give to move the circular economy approach to the business, not only for the small, the high private sector, but also for the small sectors. Giving the question from Dr. Grace regarding the SDGs, also regarding the funding right now, SDGs, if I may say, Bapana still struggling on how we can implement all of the target indicators in SDGs. We stated here right now only 15% of the target that already achieved. We have a lot of homework on there, but then regarding the finance, we try to make alternative and innovative fundings. Right now we work on the ministerial regulation and how we can mobilize the alternative funding for the SDGs through like SDGs financing hubs to integrate all of the sources from the non-governmental sectors, like from the private and also from the philanthropy and also from the others actors. It is very good because by sharing the responsibility and all of the sectors move together, I think this will be very much beneficial to all of us, because we want to have a better future. And then, yeah, it's time to, right now we need to move together, because if only the government side, with the program from the government, we cannot have the capacity on it. Government only have the capacity to cover the finance only on 24 until 30% for the total required green transition. That is why the rest of it is our responsibility to cover all of them. Thank you.
Interesting, thank you. I think we can highlight as the summary of the second question that there is a blended finance. That term is trending now because it needs a combination of financing between private sectors and governments, or even other resources like crowdfunding or philanthropy, as Ms. Anna mentioned. And this happens because the government subsidize or government's investment only cover less than 20% of the total emission targets or NDZ, or even if we want to achieve the net zero emission. And there is also a strong urgency to, you know, encourage other sectors, other investments to make this happen. And I think the next question, number 3, will be more relevant to Ms. Esti. How can a developing country like Indonesia adapt and embrace this green transition movement, especially central bank already, you know, did innovation with QR, the craze, and also embrace or engage a lot of MSMEs, micro, small, medium enterprises. Could you just, you know, share us and give more explanations about that best practices, how central bank transform that green transition movement? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Grace. For the central bank, we have a couple of policy actions that is designed to nudge or to push the private sector to move towards green transition. The first one is we put like what do you call it, specialty like loan to value ratio for green investments, and then zero down payment if you buy electric vehicle or green things, let's say. Those kind of special treatment is also designed to move the public towards a greener, let's say, action. And besides that, we think that bank is very important for green transition, because it actually holds under the banks when they give credit. They give credit to firms, some which are brown, some which are green, right? So the bank has to acknowledge that they have a role or a proportion of the emission from the firms that they give credit to. So we need to be able to calculate how much the bank is, you know, responsible. Of course, it's not all of it. It's going to be proportional to their credit. And by being able to calculate that, then we're going to be able to put like a target, because in order to transition towards green, there has to be a clear target. And if it's implementable, let's say you want the banks to be nudged a bit towards a more greener credit, then you have to know the share or the current share of the bank in credits that are not green. And currently, those kind of measures are already developed by the IFRS, but they will be implemented worldwide, and so we need to get ready for that. That's one of the things. For Bank Indonesia, we also, if you know the RPIM, the Rasio Pembiayaan Inklusif Makroprudensial. So it's a ratio in which you can see how much credit goes. At first, it's only for the SME and for the low limited income individuals. So it was designed so that banks is nudged towards giving more credit to SMEs, to small, medium enterprises, to people with limited salaries, incomes. But now it's also combined with green. So in order to be able to reach the RPIM, a bank could also buy sustainable bonds, and it could also invest in, like OJK mentioned, PT SME, and that will improve the RPIM ratio in a way that means that it's a nudging towards a greener credits. So that's what we're able to do. And the last one is also on the reserve requirement discounts. So you know that banks have to pay reserve requirement for the monetary operations, right? And we give discounts when the banks are able to reach that ratio, the RPIM ratio, When they give credit to priority sectors, we give discounts based on that. So that is the role of the central bank in pushing it towards more greener. There are others, but I think there's time's up, so I think I'll
Right. Thank you. I think this is such like a green light for, those entrepreneurs, you guys who would like to start up any business or even MSMEs, that central bank gives the discounts. I think that's also an interesting highlight for our third question. Moving on to Pak Leo, maybe you can also share any latest report or movement. We talk about green transition movement now from Greenpeace, perhaps. How could you give statement or agree with this green transition movement? How a developing country can embrace the inclusive engagement for this green transition movement?
Thank you, Dr. Grace. As I said earlier, developing countries should adapt and embrace. I mean the question, and should be involved. How? By first, very clear in terms of making the fundamental change in policy making, in creating investment to technologies, creating investment climate. I mean, basically for renewables, for energy efficiency, and ensuring that that there is a, if I may use JETP, I'm not sure whether everyone's familiar, just an energy, energy transition partnership. So there is a just, and even it's the first word. Then developing countries very much, of course, connected to this. It will, the developing countries need to be very seriously explore how to actually making this transition also provide justice to all the affected communities that are the communities that will be affected by this process, and that makes energy transition actually very much connected to questions of like quality of living, of poverty reduction, of, because we will have to have measures. We must have measures to address. Unfortunately, there's quite a few areas, geographics, populations that are now still dependent on fossil fuel industry, on coal, that need to be that need to transform themselves. This we need to find the scheme. We need to find the national government, in this case Indonesia, need to collaborate with other actors, financiers, to find the most appropriate schemes, so we can do green energy transition, but at the same time also tackle and anticipate the possible. I'll be pretty certain the impacts on social welfare, on public services, on health and education, and there's a lot of components that need to be addressed at the same time. So, and this, as what we are actually seeing now, on JETP. What we are actually asking for the Indonesian government and also IPG in JETP to be transparent. Transparencies need to be there because at the moment transparency is not yet there. So we need to ensure that we have may I say democratic measures in actually approaching this green transition. It has to be democratic.
Great, thank you. So the keyword is transparency, because through transparency we can see how democratic participation, the public engagement, that's the democratic measurement happens. And now we're going to the last question for our moderated discussion with the panelists. I'm going to invite Bu Uli to answer this question. So OJK already had so many initiatives along with other governmental, institutions and also the policies related to climate change and energy. Which environmental policies should be prioritized for developing country like Indonesia, and why? Why do we have to prioritize on that policy?
Okay, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of OJK innovations regarding the policy and regulation is just a starting point. We have not only the green taxonomy, we also have our green bond regulations. We have the POJK number 60 in 2017 that concerning the issuance and requirements for the green bonds, and now it's going to be what we call it revised into becoming thematic bonds. So this is also answer the questions to embrace not only the green instrument or projects, but also for more SDG. So social aspect, environmental, not only environmental aspect, the government's bonds. We are also expecting also to invite for the SMEs. This is, again, from the green bond itself, we have already 4 issuance. The first one is PTSMI. Alongside last year, we have BNI, BRI, and Mandiri, the 3 state-owned banks, issuing the green bonds green bonds issuance around 5 trillion rupees. And actually, every time they issue the bonds, always oversubscribed. It shows the confidence of the investors toward more green projects. This is something that we are embrace. And then the other thing, to provide with the what other prioritized policy. Because again, if we invite the private sectors into these risky activities or project, it means we have to help them to maintain the infrastructure for themselves, to be able to have the good risk management practices. We have the consultative paper for the risk management for the climate risk just issued last year. We are expecting the banking sectors, and then again, it will roll out also to the non-banking financial institutions to provide to provide with more good practices, the risk management practices, because once again, the private sector, the bank is intermediary. Their money is not coming from themselves. The money is also coming from the society, from the people, from the nations. So it means they have to have the proper investment. And then also the guarantee also, we are inviting now also the development of our insurance schemes to provide with better instruments to ensure the green projects. And the last one, OJK itself have the business matching process. In here to forefront our role that to invite, to let the private sector understand inside the business itself. One success story is the MRT buses in Indonesia. We have the electric buses now provided by Indonesian-owned, what we call it, electric vehicles manufactured in Indonesia, financed by one national bank. It was one, the signing ceremony and then business matching happening by the OJK, inviting what we call it the industry to speak up together to provide with the knowledge to the private sector to understand their processes. And then we hopefully, step by step, within the learning process, they may be able to cater the need step by step. Because the supply chain is long, they can do in one side and the other step, or production maybe, or the importing using the LC and any product or instruments by the financial institution can be used to provide with a good infrastructure for the supply chains. The last one, the current relaxation also done for the electric vehicles. It also invited not only the banking sector, but also the insurance to provide insurance for the end-to-end supply chains for the electric vehicles.
Thank you. I think we already concluded so many great things and thoughts from the speakers. For the last question, I think the keyword is integration, how to integrate different initiatives from different sectors of government, subsidies, policies, as well as the private sector's initiatives. Now, it's time for you to ask directly to the speakers. Raise your hand, and I think I will invite committee to give the microphone to the questioners. So I will choose the man back there with the blue or the jeans jacket, the lady here with the black t-shirt. Right here, is there any questions? Here, yeah, over there. So three questions first from the audience. Please mention your name and give your questions briefly to one or two speakers here. Thank you.
That's okay. Firstly, I would like to thank you for the opportunity. My name is Fatur, and I'm from Economix 21. And I would like to ask about regarding Indonesia problem financing toward green transition. As had mentioned before by Bu Ula Agustina earlier, I acknowledge that Indonesia is hampered to invest for green energy, right? But as you and all of us here, Indonesia has full potential of natural resources, especially coal. I know that green transition is really good for our planet, but if we don't optimize those potential, that only makes our country left behind. With full respect, I disagree to Pak Leonard said before that Indonesia should adapt with the current global situation now by following green transition. So my question is, why don't we optimize first our natural resources like coal, gain more finance, and at last, after we have stabilized state finance, we could take a part of our green economic transition. Thank you.
Thank you. So, are you asking the question to Pak Leo or all speakers? Huh? 4 speakers. Okay, maybe start from Pak Leo because he responded to you.
Thank you for the first question. Why we cannot follow what we have now, business as usual, and optimizing and burning all our coals until the very last reserve. Because the climate science, which has been adopted globally, has actually said very clearly that if we continue that pathway, we will go to catastrophe. It's very clear, and actually the time is ticking. 1.5 degrees previously in the UN IPCC reports 2017. We will reach 1.5 degrees. We will breach it in the decades of 2050. In 2019 reports, we will breach it in the decade of 2040. In the AR6 synthesis report of IPCC, we will breach it in the next decade, first half of next decade. And the latest report, actually in this decade, we will already reach 1.5 degrees several times. Next decade, permanently, quite likely. So we just cannot go that similar pathway. We need to have alternative way to develop ourselves. And as Bapenas already mentioned, there are other ways. There are other ways of doing development. We are not we just don't have the luxury of time anymore. We are not in the 18th centuries when James Watt found the steam. It's just history. History. The northern nations found it first and did their industrial revolution. We cannot do similar things now. But there are other ways. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me give the floor to the audience first and then go back to the speakers' answers. So the second question from the lady, and then continue the one with the man back there on my right-hand side. Please mention your name and state your questions briefly to which speaker or both speakers, please.
Okay, thank you, moderator, for this step. I want to give the question for Ms. Dia Esti Handayani. My question, according to the theme that we know that financial decriminalization of developing countries, what step can Bank Indonesia take to ensure that the benefit of green financing reach an unserved and marginalized community, promoting social equity and environment justice? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And the next question. Mention your name as well as the questions to which speaker.
So thank you for the opportunity. My name is Khalid Hisham. So previously we are explained about the urgency, right? So what I want to ask is what strategies or financial mechanism can be implemented to ensure sustainable and equitable economic growth while financing the green transition in developing countries? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I will let Ms. Esti to answer the second question first regarding the marginalized and maybe more into inclusive financing to the green transition in pursuit the environmental justice.
That's a very heavy question. So for central bank, our tools are broad-based. So when we use a certain tool, it will affect the large subset of, it's like, we can say it's like a bomb, it's not a sniper. So we have to use it very carefully. So in this sense, to be able to nudge the behavior of banks, of individuals, we use usually macroprudential in this case. And as I have explained earlier, we use the RPIM. And it was first actually is to nudge towards for banking to give more attention to the small, medium enterprises, and also for the vulnerable set of society, those with very limited income. And that's the first step. And then to increase that further, to incorporate the green transition, we added the subset of the green, in which that when the banks would like to invest in green investment, in sustainable bonds, such as that Ojeka mentioned, they can do that and they will be rewarded by that. So our tools are not direct, but they are helpful in that way. But another thing is what we're trying to do, which is actually in a smaller level, is we would try to engage the small and medium enterprises in our events. When we host the G20, host the ASEAN, we actually have a subset of small and medium enterprises that we give sort of like a technical assistance to. So it's like what do you call it? It's like a partnership. And so we look at their products and we try to engage them in the events that we go through to be able to actually to make them known to the world that we have these products like coffee, we have abundant coffee, and we try to even bring that to Washington DC when there is annual meetings and etc. And so those are two branches. The first one is the broad policies that the central bank usually does, and the smaller ones are the ones that we do as an institution to try to help the communities. I hope that answers your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And the third question, I think it will be relevant to Ibu Uli, because the question is about what kind of innovation or financial mechanism that Indonesia should do to boost up, to accelerate the green transition. Okay, maybe Ms. Anna, would you like to answer that? What kind of innovation or financial mechanism to
Yeah,
accelerate the green transition, please?
Okay. Regarding the financial mechanism, because as I said before, this climate change issue, green transition issue is very sexy right now. A lot of sources willing to support the action how we can move towards a greener future. But then how is the financial mechanism should be implemented in Indonesia? The first one is regarding the government side. As we already integrate the climate issue, greener or green economic issue in our development planning, it's not become a different source of fund. When we, I mean, if we set the program, it's already in a greener way, so that the fund, the finance will follow. We use the terminology money follow program. That is why we set the low carbon development and low carbon development and climate resilience development become our backbone for the green economy. That's the first one. And the other side is we try to move to innovative funding, because as I also mentioned before, government cannot cover all of the finance needed requirement to the green transition. For the green economy, for instance, we require more than 3,000 trillions per year up to 2060 if you want to achieve net zero emission and also achieve the green economy. That is why blended finance, as Dr. Grins mentioned before, can be utilized here. Innovative funds like a blended finance, where all of the funds coming from the multinational funds or bilateral entities can be put in one platform, where the government have their also important roles to be at the risking and also give a guarantee to the investor to give their money to the business or the action in a green sector. There is we hope that with that way the gap between investor and in the business sector will be closed, and government can give subsidies and so on to increase the appetite for the investor and also the green the business sectors. At the other side, also like we can also increase the public-private partnership, because it's very good collaboration, how we can collaborate between private and also government sides to give a mutual benefit in the green aspect. I think that's kind of the innovative mechanism right now. We are now under the we are now in developing the ministerial regulation regarding that innovative funds. So we hope we can implement in very near future. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Ms. Anna. Now we still have two more questions online, and the first question is going to Bu Uli from DEA. Considering
I haven't answered the questions from the first question.
Okay.
Regarding the issue that we should more, what we call it, explore more about the coal. This is something quite controversy, but the first one I would like to say that I agree with Pak Leonard. This is urgent matters. We cannot just what we call it, blinded by the situations. The heat wave, you feel it in Indonesia now. In Jakarta especially, the air pollutant, if you have the index, is already 188. Compare, I checked one of the city in UK, Oxford, is only 18. So where the pollutant come from? Of course, it's from the power plant. Okay, it's from the GHG emissions, especially of our consumptions. This is urgent matters. Everybody have to tackle the issue. It's impossible for us to not really, what we call it, okay, we just blinded, we just do this. Everything is already being planned by the government under Bappenas. We already have what we call it energy transitions mapping, and within that planning is already in place. Some coal phasing out, some power plants is already going to be phased out. In COP28, I believe that Pak Jokowi will mention some of the plans that going to be what we call it phased out regarding this issue also. That's why OJK, together with BI and Ministry of Finance, we will also implement the what we call it, revise the green taxonomy toward the coal phasing out. We will then help the government to mapping out, the prioritize which power plant that still be able to be explored, especially for the national interest, especially for industry, especially for the smelter, for the what we call it, the productions of our national resources to have better economic value. How about the consumptions? Consumption, we try to do what we call it, try to replace it with the non-renewable energy, especially in Java and Sumatra. There are a lot of non-renewable power plants is already in place, and where I believe that PLN already have the roadmap. You can also explore that in their website. This is easy also, but then I invite all of us here to do what? Efficiency in using the electricity. That's the main thing, okay? So, all in all, the collaboration and the synergy cannot be like, okay, we cannot just mention that we do all the resources. Do you know what the cost of the power plant rehabilitations? And do you know what the cost of the stranded asset after the power plants is not in productions? It's also costly. So we have to understand that. So the limitation, the mapping, the planning should be very direct, very efficient to move into the direction, and of course, to provide us with the better, what we call it, action plan toward the climate change. Because what? The climate change is not about the climate. The end of this, it will be what? The food change. Can you imagine the drought, the floods will affect and impact to our biodiversity, will impact to the food and supply chain. This is also something that have to be reminded for all of us. Maybe later I will invite UI buildings more green without the aircon, more open, so we no need during this, not using so many lightings. This kind of efficiencies have to start from us. Okay.
Thank you. And the next two more questions, but maybe you can answer briefly first to Ibu Uli. How can we accelerate the green transition while avoiding the excessive debts? And the second question to Ibu Anna, or maybe Ms. Esti, what do you think about smooth transition? What kind of smooth transition when we talk about green transition? Please.
Yes. We have positive GDP this year, yeah, Bu Esti. It means, it shows that our debt is becoming less and less compared to our income. Yeah, you learn about the term, what's the GDP come from, but again, the GDP is coming from the economy, from our natural resources. But again, what we need to know, what we need now is the collaboration and synergy, and how to invite more private sectors to be able to cater the needs for the supply chains, for all the renewable, not only for the power plants, but also using more good technology to invent better use of the fossil fuels or coal. For example, now Coal also, there is we call it brown and green coal. Coal no need to be burned, but we can use it as hydrogen. And also, there's lots of other things that can be generative products from the coal also can be used for the plastic industry and everything, all the technology in place. And then all the technology also will help a more efficient way from the exploratory, from the digging until the usage. This is, for example, the lightings. We have also some efficient electricity using of lamps, something like that. And then what private sectors, they have to understand where they need to invest, where they need to finance. That's why we open for the, what we call it, a specific expert to be able to help us to do what we call it, to provide with their technology assistant, expert, if I'm not mistaken, like US CINER, USAID, and invite other what we call GFANs. They're all collaborating with us under the JETP also to provide us with the assistance for that kind of efficient using of energy, efficient buildings, and also for all the renewable power plant that we need to explore more. And the other things, we also invited through the corporate CSR from the banking sector itself. We are asking them to do more, do circular economy, doing their, what we call it, from themselves. They do what we call it, reduce, reuse, recycle practices. They also helping, for example, providing with better nature, planting trees inside the, what we call it, beach areas. Something that we invite them to be more collaborated also for the SME, to provide with understanding, importing or masonry with less efficiency. For example, using the biomass for their productions. This is also quite positive and optimistic for us that all the private sector, the banking will have the capability to cater all this need. Thank you.
Okay, quick answer to the last question. Maybe Ms. Esti would like to say about the smooth transition. What is smooth transition in central bank's perspective, perhaps?
You sure you're not going to start with Bapenas first? But okay. So Bapenas will be able to answer in details. But for us, smooth transition is, we go back to the jargon or the tagline of Indonesian G20, which is, the Ministry of Finance likes to say that we need a just, affordable, and orderly transition. So it's not just smooth or orderly, but it needs to be just and it needs to be affordable. Why? Because we're emerging markets. We don't have a lot of money. So we need to find ways in which to transition that is within our means, because if not, then what's the point? Like, there's a technology to do it, but we don't have the money to buy the technology. So that's one of the factors that we need to take into account. And also, what we need to see is that Indonesia is a country with a lot of, with a large energy sectors. Like for Europe, maybe for them, green transition is all about the gains because they don't have a large energy sector. So it's easier for them to jump. But for us, we need to think about, like the first questioner, about the coal, because there's that industry, there's that human resource there. We need them to be able to transition smoothly. And that's the challenges, because we have the fuel industry. We need them to be able to move to another, like the human resource needs to be able to be moved to a greener sector. So it needs to be really planned out well. And we need to also have a clear objective of where we're going. And that way we are able to choose our path. But I don't want to say to be pessimistic, because Indonesia has so much natural resource, and a lot of them are green. We have sunlight, we have wind, we have thermal, geothermal energy. And so we have a lot of options. We can do it. It's just that we have to be clear on where to go, and this is where the planning from Bapenas comes in. Monggo.
Thank you. Maybe Ms. Anna can have a very quick answer before we conclude the session. Thank you.
Okay.
when we talk about transition, it's not a sudden act. This is a long-run action, and that is why the trajectory and stepping stone is very important. That is why to make a smooth transition, just transition, we have to clear or set the clear target and also trajectory in each year, and prioritize what sector need to be intervened first. Like that is maybe quite simple, but it's very hard because we are big countries. Bappenas work hard on this. We use a lot of analysis in this. We use a lot of modeling. We use and also we use system dynamic modeling, because we want to see one action will give in what aspect, will impact in what aspect. What of course it's not, one action will give a spread impact on all of the sectors. The first one is that, and then we need to set very clearly and very carefully about the enabler condition. For instance, if we want to smooth transition to the energy, to be a greener energy, we don't only focus on set up the renewable energy, but bear in mind, we also need to focus on also how to reduce the consumption first. Like we can use energy efficiency program, because it's very low-hanging fruit and with a big impact in reducing the greenhouse gas emission. And also the other enabler like collaboration, also technology and research and development, and also capacity building on human resources and building the skills to and also prepare the green job. What kind of skills matching to be prepared for the green job? It's very, very important to make it smooth. Of course, we don't want to close entirely coal plant. We will do it very gradually, because in Bappenas we will work on it through government annual plan, and also for the annually, and also for the medium-term plan. Right now we are in a process of developing 20 years plan, 2025 to 2045, and don't worry, we already succeed internally to spread the virus of green. So the next 20 years, our plan will be very thick on a sustainable development and greener economy. And then we will cascading in each 5 years plan to detailing to the target and in a tangible indicator and so on. This is, I think, this very important process to make a smooth transition. And we still optimistic to achieve our future target net zero emission and also sustainable development. Thank you.
Fantastic. So let's have a big applause to all the speakers today. I don't think I should give a wrap up, because you guys already covered so many lessons learned today. Integration, blended finance, smooth transition with just affordability. And without further ado, I think we should wrap up this session. Again, thank you so much, Pak Leo, Ibu Ana, Ibu Esti, Ibu Uli. Thank you so much for all questions online through the audience. I'm afraid that we don't have much time longer to the discussion, but we can have another, moment if you want to approach or maybe talk directly to the speakers. I hand over to the MC. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gracia Paramita, for guiding this moderated session.
Before leaving the stage, we would like to commemorate this moment with a documentation session with all main session speakers. Okay, be ready, speakers, because we want to document the session. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
To all speakers, please return to your designated seats. Thank you very much. Let's give a big round of applause for today's moderator and speaker. Now, we would like to give a token of appreciation to our main session speakers and moderator.
Therefore, we kindly invite Mr. Unix Brian Sadikin as the Chief Executive Officer of the 21st Economix to give the placards. For our first main session speaker, Ms. Uli Agustina, we invite you back to the stage.
Again, we would like to express our gratitude once more to Ms. Uli Agustina.
On to our next speaker, Mr. Leonard Simanjuntak, we invite you to the stage.
Once again, we would like to say thank you to Mr. Leonard Simanjuntak. On to our next speaker, Miss Anna Amalia. We invite you to the stage.
We would like to express our gratitude once more to Miss Anna Amalia.
On to our next speaker, Miss Diah Esti Handayani. We invite you to the stage.
We would like to express our gratitude once more to Miss Diah Esti Handayani.
And finally, to our amazing moderator, Dr. Gracia Paramita, we invite you to the stage.
Once again, we would like to express our most sincere appreciation to our exceptional moderator and main session speakers.
Last but not least, we would also like to thank our media partner,
Greenpeace Indonesia,
and our sponsor,
Iluni FEBUI. Ladies and gentlemen, the show is not over yet. To close today's seminar, we'll hear a few words from Professor Bambang Permadi Sumantri Brojonegoro as former finance minister and currently the President Commissioner Telkom Indonesia.
He was the Minister of Finance of Indonesia from 2014 to 2016. Alongside his many notable achievements, he also once served as the Governor of World Bank during 2014 to 2016. Currently, Professor Dr. Bambang Brojonegoro is holding several strategic positions as advisor and commissioner in various companies. Few of them being the President Commissioner of Telkom Indonesia as well as President Commissioner of Bukalapak.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Dr. Bambang Brojonegoro.
across the globe. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First and foremost, I'd like to extend my deepest appreciation to the Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas Indonesia, and the diligent members of Canopy for organizing such an insightful event. The theme, financing the green transition of developing countries, has been explored, debated, and discussed from various perspectives, shedding light on the complexity and urgency of the matter. Throughout our time together, we have delved into the multifaceted dynamics of green transition financing approaches, especially concerning developing nations. We have tackled the intricate balance between economic growth and environmental sustainability, shedding light on challenges and celebrating potential solutions. Today, I want to address a topic that sits at the very heart of the global climate action, the role of developing countries in our collective journey towards a sustainable future. Many might wonder why place such emphasis on this nation. The answer is clear. Developing countries are not just the backdrop of the global climate narratives, they are central characters possessing immense potential to transform the trajectory of climate change. Imagine the lush rainforests of the Amazon, the Congo Basin, or the Borneo. These are not mere patches of green. They are the lungs of our planet, serving as vital carbon sinks. Many such biodiverse ecosystems, crucial for global climate stabilization, find their homes in the developing nations. Protecting them is not a choice, it is an imperative. Building on that, it is crucial to acknowledge that a significant portion of low-cost, nature-based climate solution is nestled within the global south. To give perspective, about 15% of this potential is believed to be in Indonesia alone, mirroring the immense capacity present in Brazil. From avoided deforestation and the restoration of peatlands to extensive reforestation initiatives, these countries offer practical, cost-effective solutions to some of our most pressing environmental challenges. Amid this backdrop of environmental potential, we cannot ignore the economic narrative of these regions. The developing countries, many of them experiencing meteoric economic growth, have an insatiable demand for energy. This rapid economic expansion, driven by industries, business, and aspiring middle class, is both a challenge and an opportunity. On one hand, unchecked energy consumption can lead to exacerbated emission and environmental degradation. On the other, there lies a golden opportunity, the potential to harness clean, sustainable energy sources, reducing dependence on fossil fuel. Instead of walking the well-trodden paths of the industrialized world, these nations have a chance to leapfrog into a future where economic growth is not at odds with environmental sustainability. This is where the green investment, especially from the private sector, can play a transformative role, enabling transition to renewable energy sources, driving innovation, and fostering sustainable industrial practices. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, the transition to renewable energy in emerging economies like Indonesia is relatively slower than in developed countries. Factors such as higher capital costs, lower purchasing power, and country risk factors contribute to this situation. Attracting investment for low-carbon projects is influenced by macroeconomic strength, state capacity, economic and regulatory gaps, policy uncertainty, and regulated power tariffs. These factors result in clean energy investment in emerging markets and developing economies, accounting for less than 40% of global investment. According to the International Energy Agency, this number should expand by more than 7 times to above $1 trillion annually to reach net zero emission by 2050. Delving deeper into Indonesian context, it is evident that the high capital cost and a significant bottleneck. The bulk of renewable energy generation costs are usually upfront capital expenditure, which need immediate addressing. Coupled with this is the extended payback period associated with renewable projects, translating in returns on electricity spread over an elongated time frame. Consequently, a steeper capital cost leads to future returns being more heavily discounted, causing a surge in the levelized cost of electricity, or LCOE. A study from Institute of Essential Services Reform showed that if there is an increase of 20% of capital costs, geothermal project will be the most affected, showing a 16% increase of LCOE. As for the solar and wind, the impact is quite similar at the level of 12% increase of LCOE. If we compare it to gas turbine or coal ultra supercritical, they are at a lower rate, only amount to 4 to 8% increase in LCOE. So, what's the way forward for Indonesia? A promising avenue lies in onshoring all technology production. By internalizing the production of key technologies, the nation can curtail generation costs while simultaneously bolstering domestic competitiveness. An exemplary stride in the direction is evident in the establishment of the largest solar cell manufacturing facilities located in Kendal, boasting an impressive initial production capacity of 1 gigawatt peak annually. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, our discussion on renewable energy and its challenges are only reliance on fossil fuels. This dependence, coupled with subsidies and compensation directed toward fossil communities, skews the competitive landscape, preventing green energy from competing on a level playing field. Gasoline, diesel subsidies, and even electrical tariff subsidies, which bear the brunt of high-priced diesel power plants, are just a few examples of this financial imbalance. But herein lies a remarkable solution: the power of blended finance. By combining different sources of funds from both development and commercial streams, we can bolster our financial resources for energy transition. However, it is pivotal to note that blended finance is not merely about pooling various sources. The focus must pivot towards the mobilization of private capital. How can this be achieved? Well, let's consider some tangible blended finance structures. Melding concessional public or philanthropic funding with private equity or debt funds, thereby drawing institutional investment. Issuing bonds or notes buttressed by guarantees or insurance from public or philanthropic entities. Or utilizing grant funding from philanthropic corners to enhance the capacity of investment, aiming for robust financial and social returns. And lastly, and more importantly, directing grants to design and structure projects, rendering them irresistible to institutional investment. Recent data from Convergence illustrate the boundless potential of blended finance in the energy sector. The energy domain consistently dominates the blended finance landscape, constituting 35% of all closed transactions in 2020. Even more encouragingly, 88% of financing invested into blended climate projects actually went to renewable energy sectors. To bring this concept closer to home, let's spotlight a success story: the development and rejuvenation of micro hydropower plant in Jambi. With a commendable capacity of 180 kilowatts, these power hubs light up the lives of more than 800 households and reaching over 4,400 individuals across 4 remote villages. The triumvirate backing this endeavor, Basnas, Badan Amil Zakat Nasional, UNDP, and the government showcase a harmonious confluence of state and non-state financial support. The project stands as a testament to how blended finance, combining Zakat and CSR finances, can drive impactful, sustainable change in the grassroots level. Concluding on a high note, blended climate-linked bonds and notes have surged in prominence. The world witnessed a resounding endorsement of this financial instrument, with the volume of green bond financing soaring to all-time high of $150 billion in the third quarter of 2021. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, as we look ahead, the urgency to decarbonize our global economy is evident and pressing. According to McKinsey, annual global demand for carbon credits could reach up to 1.5 to 2 gigatons of carbon dioxide by 2030 and up to 7 to 13 giga CO2 by 2050. Given the potential price trajectories and the factors that influence them, we are looking at formidable carbon credit market, possibly exceeding $50 billion by 2030. Our path forward must involve the strategic application of carbon pricing instrument, which can become potent tools in our arsenal. Instruments such as carbon taxes, credits, offsets, or even mechanisms resembling renewable energy certificates are poised to reallocate funds from private sector to public initiative. This then could be judiciously used to finance energy transition activities. Recognizing the immense potential of carbon market, especially in the rapidly evolving economies of the Recognizing the immense potential of the carbon market, especially in the rapidly evolving economies of the Asia Pacific, there is an imperative to establish robust market infrastructure. This is crucial to ensure increased sectoral coverage and maximum revenue extraction. Bringing the focus to Indonesia, we see that our nation is not only keeping pace, but also showing leadership. Our proactive approach is evident through the mandated cap and trade system for coal-fired power plant. The recent introduction of the POJK on carbon trading through carbon exchanges exemplifies our determination and vision. Furthermore, it is incumbent upon our government to delineate with clarity the activities encompassed within energy transition. A newly released ASEAN Taxonomy for Sustainable Finance version 2 can supplement classification in this regard. A future enhancement from OJK on Indonesia Green Economy Taxonomy Edition 1.0 will hopefully spur a surge of credit and investment into our green sectors. In conclusion, heartfelt gratitude is due to every speaker, moderator, participant, and the diligent organizing committee. Through your efforts, the seminar has evolved into a beacon of hope and action. Remember, singular action like single drops can collectively create an ocean of change. Today, we have added our drop to this transformative ocean. Thank you very much, and let's together champion a brighter, sustainable future. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Professor Bambang, for the closing remarks. And now we have reached the end of today's event. We have been very pleased to guide you all through the opening ceremony, today's inspiring dialogue, and lastly, the closing remarks.
But before we close the seminar, don't forget to fill out the presence form by scanning the QR showed on the screen.
Once again, we would like to thank our media partner,
Greenpeace Indonesia,
and also to our sponsor,
Iluni FEBUI.
We really hope that today's dialogue will give you beneficial knowledge resulting in new ideas to overcome the global economic challenges.
Thank you for the audience, especially our distinguished guests, speakers, and participants of the 21st Economix International Dialogue. Thank you everyone for your attendance in this year's 21st Economix International Dialogue.
We would like to bid farewell. I'm Faisal.
And I am Najla.
See you on the 21st Economix International Seminar on November 27th, 2023.
The 21st Economix
Spirit.
Spirit.